Hi there. Today we'll be diving into how I added a grapple hook mechanic to the Gotham Edifice Experience. Before we get into the video, I'd like to ask you to subscribe so I can see that funny little number go up, and let's get into it. This mechanic's development was unlike anything I've done before. People often say that Minecraft modders make things super fast, and this is because they don't follow industry standards. For this mechanic, however, I wanted to try a more industry standard approach. I started by making concept art, where I can quickly make edits to the look or the mechanics without having to waste hours of programming, making behaviors that won't work or the team doesn't like. So if we look at this, we have a new particle in mind for the grapple points. Previously we had particle points on each corner of the selected block, and now we decided we wanted to use a particle closely resembling the LEGO game's grapple indicators. The main thing we want to look at, though, for this concept art is the block up at the top right. You can see that we have different orientations for the grapple point that do different things, such as the top being to launch the player, the side to be to clamber up on top of the block, or underneath to swing. So after stewing on those ideas and getting feedback, I then made concept art for different models or types of grapple points to make it easier to tell what the different functions of the block would be. We decided on a few different designs. The U-shape one would be used on the side of blocks and would be for the clamber mechanic. The bar would be used for the swing mechanic, and the launch mechanic block didn't even have a concept for it at this point. We'll get into that later. Then it was on to modeling. I started with the U-shaped one as it was the initial design that we had come up with. There were only two variants to the model, and we went with the one that does not extend to the edges of the block. I then did the bar type grapple point, but I actually didn't get any early model screenshots because it was pretty straightforward to make. But now we get into the absolute doozy that was the launch points development. We started with this sort of concept, and Ilaris wanted it to be clearer that you can launch in any direction. So I tried making it 3D, and let's just say it did not work at all. We decided it needed to be more round, and it got even worse. So we did a couple more designs, and they didn't look very Minecrafty, and so then we ended up with a valve design. We thought that the circular version from the original concept art could be used for this omnidirectional launch point. And so we added a rod through it and turned it into a valve. After we decided on the new design for the launch type point, I textured them all and it was time for programming. I started on the swing type grapple point because I thought it would be easiest, and let's just say it was pretty janky. I sorted out the air control thing and refined it a lot more.
Usually we wouldn't use the swing bar to get up places, but here's how it looks. And I made it so that you're able to swing from one grapple to the next. So, yeah.
There was a bunch of boring bug fixes and mechanic tweaks and all that stuff, but that was about it for the swing point. So then I started working on the clamber type grapple point. We decided on having the clamber type working pretty similar to the LEGO games, where you can go up and down on the line while connected to a grapple point. You drop items to get pulled higher and use the item to drop lower with a maximum of 16 blocks. Here was the first test of the full mechanic. Then I made it so that you can only grapple to the clamber points when you're within a 3x3 area underneath the block. I also made it so that it gives you the right amount of items depending on your distance from the grapple point. And let me just say, this mechanic was as good as a medium rare steak because I was cooking. I ignored Iloris and continued in the kitchen and made the particle effect for when you're looking at a valid grapple point. Then I got to making the launch point. I made some concept art for the mechanic where you would launch based on the initial distance you were from the point. Then Iloris changed the mechanic with a simple GIF of Miles Morales from Spider-Man 2. So we decided that instead of the initial distance determining how far you launch, it would be that you can tighten or slacken the line like a slingshot to get different launch strengths. Then I got to cooking. And let me say, I cooked. And that was the entire grapple point mechanic from start to finish. Here's the original concept and the final product. This whole process has given me more insight into how Mojang's development cycle may work. I enjoyed this process because it made the development more straightforward, and the endpoint was very clear. It gave me a break from just programming and let me do art for a little bit. I'm super proud of how this whole thing has come out, and I'm excited to continue using this process on upcoming mechanics. And since you made it this far, I have a little Easter egg for you. Now, if you've made it this far, say $5 in the comments, and I'll give it a heart. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing so that I can see that funny number go up, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.